So, I'm not a banana, and that should be self-evident, but there was a lot of produce getting chucked about last week on social media. And it started off as part of a rolling controversy, and I use that word reluctantly, about Gotham Knights targeting 30 FPS on next-gen consoles, bucking a trend for higher frame rates that's basically dominated the entire cross-gen period, which is now either coming to an end or will never end depending on who you ask. Now, the vast majority of people, and especially console players, don't give much of a shit about this, but what raised eyebrows wasn't the frame rate cap as such, but Warner Brothers' explanation for it, which was a load of word salad about having fully untethered co-op in a highly detailed open world. It wasn't very convincing, but once we got our hands on all the different versions of the game, including the PC version by the way, it became apparent that the game is just very badly engineered. The 30 FPS cap is more of a stretch goal than a target, an ambitious extra that you might get if you're lucky, and indoors. And the idea that this is such a cutting-edge next-gen experience that it can't possibly give up any of those precious CPU cycles for something as frivolous as decent performance is, to put it plainly, not supported by the experience of actually playing the game. But I digress. Off the back of that, a couple of devs, I'm not going to name any names, responded to this controversy by criticising the audience's expectations and also a piece of hardware that a lot of them keep buying, the inconsiderate pricks, namely the Series S, the cheap and cheerful base model of Xbox, which shares most of the same hardware as its bigger brother, but nonetheless was denounced as a potato in an exchange which has since been unceremoniously scrubbed from the record because the author deleted their account. By linking the two things, they also sort of accidentally implied that the Series S was in some way responsible for 30 FPS caps on consoles that aren't the Series S, which is obviously ludicrous, but people on the internet love getting their wires crossed, and so that became a thing too. Actually repeated by a big gaming news outlet as well. I mean, another developer claimed that the Series S is such a millstone around the neck of next-gen game development that studios have been begging Microsoft to let them drop support for it altogether, to which Microsoft presumably said something along the lines of, "Fuck off." Look, I understand what it's like to be a creative whose work has been stifled by immovable decrees made by some prick in a suit somewhere, right? I've worked for the BBC, I get it. But this railing against the Series S leaves a bad taste in my mouth for two reasons. One is a matter of opinion, and the other is a matter of society. To address the first thing, of course, everyone's entitled to the opinion that the Series S is a potato. It's just a really stupid opinion. The kind of idiotic Reddit patter that frankly shouldn't be given time of day in a boardroom. Don't get me wrong, the experience offered by the Series S does admittedly fall short of the premium 4K 60 experience you might enjoy on Series X or PS5 or $3,000 PC that you're going to be paying off until the end of 2026. I know whereof I speak. I'm not going to bat for the Series S out of some misplaced loyalty to it as my only option. I've got everything. Playing video games has been part of my job for nearly a decade. I know and appreciate the differences between various grades of hardware. And I love speed and power as much as Jeremy Clarkson does, but sometimes even the most committed enthusiasts will tell you that all you need is for a machine to be good enough. And Series S is more than good enough. It can run Cyberpunk 2077, a notoriously taxing game, to a perfectly decent standard that's more than playable. For 250 quid, that's incredible. You'd have to spend twice that on a PC before you could run Cyberpunk like this, and you'd still get laughed at by all the obscene low follower count boys for having a tiny GPU. That's an insanely low barrier for entry for an experience which has been essentially gatekept from the vast majority of the gaming market on account of it running like dog shit on most of the consoles that are actually in the wild, namely the base PS4. So much so that CD Projekt Red have now effectively dropped support for last gen altogether, with future expansions being next gen only, which includes the Series S, because the Series S is next gen in all the ways that count. This generation was not sold on getting more polygons on screen or rendering more particles, or 8K resolution, which is 100% not on the cards. This generation, if you remember, was sold on the basis of fixing the two bottlenecks that crippled the PS4 and the Xbox One: slow CPUs and, more crucially, archaic storage technology that games have to be designed around.
To me, the SSD really is the key to the next generation.
This was supposed to be the next-gen revolution, getting rid of loading screens, or the glorified loading screens where you're standing in a lift while the next bit of the Citadel is magicked into existence, or those bits where you have to shimmy through a narrow crack in a rock wall to give that creaking laptop hard drive time to spin up and find the assets for the next cave you want to go spelunking or whatever. long corridors, assets that repeat themselves in the directory tree so often that the size of the game is inflated. These things are supposed to be a thing of the past, but they're not. And it's not because of the Series S, which is in this regard almost exactly the same as the Series X and pretty close to the PS5. The Series S has better hardware in it than most people's PCs. The idea that it's somehow holding back the development of next-gen games is frankly ludicrous in a world where the most common GPU among Steam users is its rough equivalent. 1000 series GPUs still reign supreme in the real world of PC gaming, which is distinct from the fantasy world of Reddit where everyone's got a fucking 3090. Meaning that your average Steam user is rocking hardware which is 2 and soon to be 3 generations behind, and this is before we get to the Steam Deck, which is one of the hottest pieces of kit right now. Studios are clamoring to support it because folk absolutely love it, and it's designed to run off a wee battery. It's souped up netbook hardware, once again designed to be a low-cost box with a different use case to its larger equivalents, targeting a significantly lower screen resolution. Is that holding back game development as well? I've not seen anyone complain about it, and if they did, they'd look daft. You can run Flight Simulator on that thing if you're prepared to put up with a few compromises, just like how your average Series S owner is prepared to put up with a few compromises. A cheap and cheerful machine that's engineered to run the latest games, but on a small TV. It's a compromise, it's a concession, it's a fact of life that a lot of the audience consider it good enough. Which brings me to the other thing. There are two areas where the Series S absolutely bodies the competition: price and convenience. I'm outing myself as the sort of wank who has a Series S mounted on the wall in the bedroom just to illustrate this point, right? This is a cavity wall. If I tried doing this with the PS5, I'd end up with an ensuite. The point is, the Series S is designed to fit into the lives of normal people. Normal people who don't really care about speed and power when it comes to their electronics. They just want a box they can play Battlefield or Assassin's Creed on, and preferably a box that doesn't cost them a week's wages and doesn't look so much like a big pile of shit that they have to hide it behind a flap. For many, the Series S represents an affordable entry point into next-gen gaming, something which hasn't existed for a long time, and this has to exist for a damn good reason. In case you've forgotten, the new generation of consoles launched in the middle of a crippling pandemic, at a time when most of the world's economies had shut themselves down. In the economic turmoil that's followed, frankly, a lot of people are going to struggle to pony up the 500 quid it takes to buy the kind of hardware that certain game devs on Twitter think is an acceptable minimum. As we know, between the cost of living crisis and the semiconductor shortage, it's been so difficult to get a hold of a PS5 for much of its lifetime that the PS4 has effectively been kept on life support as a current platform, and still vastly dwarfs the user base of any of the machines that have come after it. If anything, the Series S is actually raising the average in terms of the quality of hardware people have at home. Once again, it has the super fast NVMe storage and the robust CPU of its bigger brothers. These are the bottlenecks that needed to be shifted. We just have to accept that some people can't justify a week's wages on a toy that's a bit better than the one they've already got. But a lot of people are happy to spend some money on a cheaper, more incremental upgrade because they want to keep up, but it's all they can afford. And honestly, when you're crying to Microsoft about wanting to cut support for those people on the basis that you can't be arsed engineering scalability into your game to suit a range of hardware requirements, something you'd have to do for the PC market anyway, it just smacks of elitism. And look, this is a free market. You don't have to put your stuff on Xbox. If your ideas are so cutting edge that they couldn't possibly be made to work on anything less than a PS5 spec, then just do that. Nobody's stopping you. If your untethered big brain genius ideas are good enough to make people buy a new GPU, then go for it. Make that proposition. Plenty of others have. But if you can't do that because the numbers just don't work, if you artificially limit the size of your market and you find yourself having to compromise your vision in order to make the spreadsheet add up, then congratulations. You live under the yoke of capitalism just like the rest of us. Fucking grow up. I've been Jim Trinker for VG247, and you should definitely like and subscribe, because if you don't, you smell. Check out the website, check out the podcast, check it all out. Check it out like it's Supermarket Sweet, man. I'll speak to you later.